I grew up playing with my brother and didn't go to childcare or preschool. My grandparents knew we needed to be educated but didn't understand the importance of early childhood education. So when it was time to send me to kindergarten, there were many problems. The school asked my grandparents for school readiness information such as immunization records, physical, mental and social health information, and if I was able to speak English. I had no health records and I couldn't speak Australian English, so I wasn't able to enroll in school and was told by the school that I needed to attend preschool. After applying for many different preschools, one accepted me and I loved it there. They didn't care that I was Aboriginal, built a rapport with my grandparents and helped them access different government services for help. I learned how to speak English, which was exciting, but I found it hard to say certain sounds like ch. But I overcame this difficulty with sessions with a speech pathologist who came to the preschool. I started seeing a doctor for the first time in my life and was immunized. They also diagnosed me with otitis media or glue ear, which I overcame with medication, and asymmetrical tonic neck reflex, which I overcame with neck exercises. After a year at preschool, I was ready to enroll in school, and this time I was accepted. At primary school, I missed my family terribly. School life was a stark contrast to my life outside school, where I spent most of my time with my closely knit Aboriginal community. I was always taught by my family not to talk back when I was asked a question, and not to make eye contact because that can be seen as being insubordinate. At school, this was translated by as being rude and uncooperative. The only times I really learned something at school was when I worked cooperatively with the other students, or when I could watch them work and learn from them. Unfortunately, many of my peers preferred individual work and were very competitive with schoolwork. My family was not much help when I struggled at school because they thought the school was trying to make me ignore my culture. In hindsight, they were probably right. The only times my teachers taught Aboriginal history, they spoke about it from their point of view, using terms like settlement and discovery, when my family used words like invasion and domination. They did try to incorporate Aboriginal culture into the classroom, but it was always very generic information and they never asked my community to contribute. My teachers ignored the fact that I spoke Aboriginal English at home and Standard English at school. Switching between the two languages was very difficult and affected my early literacy development. I did not receive the support I needed until I got to Year 4. My Year 4 teacher, Mrs. Smith, seemed to understand the difficulties I was having with literacy. She really helped me to learn by using a number of helpful teaching strategies. She even got the whole staff of the school to embrace Aboriginal culture. Mrs. Smith fostered in me a love for reading, and it felt good that I could read to my brother at home. Well, Mrs. Smith and the principal recommended me for an Aboriginal education scholarship to go to high school in Brisbane. I was nervous about leaving my grandparents and brother behind, but I would be boarding at the school and I could come home during school holidays. The scholarship would cover my tuition and accommodation fees. Mrs. Smith said it was a fantastic opportunity and that it was a very good high school. She was so right. The school was very inclusive and I was not the only Indigenous student. At each assembly they acknowledged the traditional owners of the land. In social studies, they were balanced in perspectives and students were taught to respect themselves and each other regardless of race or other diversities. In Year 7, my English teacher was Mr. Keegle, and he changed my life forever. I connected with Mr. Keegle because he was from my culture and I admired him for becoming a teacher. He was actually a leader in closing the gap in educational disadvantage. In an interview he had once on Newsline Radio, he shared with other Indigenous educators their views on how to close the gap on literacy and numeracy standards between Indigenous and non-Indigenous children. Mr. Keegle inspired me to work hard in high school. I successfully completed my high school certificate and had no hesitation to go to university and study my Bachelor of Primary Education majoring in literacy. I wanted to become one of those Aboriginal educators that would help to close the gap. I was able to apply for HECS whilst I studied my course, and the graduation was the pinnacle of my life. My grandparents were so proud of me. They have my degree certificate and graduation photo hanging up in their house. Sadly, not long after my graduation, my grandfather passed away. In his legacy and passion for Aboriginal education, I've started up a tutoring business that is available to all Indigenous students in remote areas from primary to high school age. It's called Jamu Tutors. which means grandfather tutors. I'm happy to be working with Indigenous children in this way, and I hope to improve the educational outcomes for those marginalised students and help close the gap within Australian education for the future.